There's a couple new Nintendo Switch stories we have to talk about today, starting with the conversation around Nintendo Switch's 2022 holiday lineup, as clearly things have shifted around since the announcement of Breath of the Wild 2's delay, and it now looks like we may be slated for a Mario game to hit in that winter time slot. Then the big talking point for today's video is a brand new system firmware upgrade that just went live for the Nintendo Switch late last night, and I want to break down all the details of the changes and have a broader discussion of what we need to see Nintendo adjust on the Nintendo Switch system firmware going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, we got a couple different stories to discuss today, and we have to kick it off with an updated conversation around Nintendo's 2022 holiday lineup, as we know that the recent announcement, which, by the way, this is happening. I've seen people in the comments that are confused from different videos floating around online, but Breath of the Wild 2 has been delayed until 2023. It was not a Nintendo April Fool's joke. This is actually a delay that is happening, and there is implications, of course, for the Nintendo Switch's lineup that will hit in the rest of 2022, as up to that point in time, Breath of the Wild 2 was going to be the big holiday system seller and the reason to go buy a new Nintendo Switch if you don't have one, and just a staple title that you have to own if you are a Nintendo Switch owner. And clearly the hype levels are through the roof for this game. So when we did get the official confirmation that it is delayed until spring of 2023 is the current time window we're projecting towards now, well, obviously that's going to shift around a lot of the moving pieces that Nintendo otherwise would have had in place for this launch window. And we already know 2022 is a stacked year by all accounts. We have some major end of the year titles to look forward to, like Bayonetta 3 and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet towards the end of the year, and then even sooner than that in September, a major game like Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So clearly Nintendo is not light on content for the year of 2022 by any stretch of the imagination. But of course, there has been a lot of discourse online around what Nintendo may be planning now that this Breath of the Wild 2 delay has officially happened. And the reason that a new Mario game being in that 2022 holiday lineup is now being widely discussed online has a lot to do with a recent podcast that just went live from Nate the Hate and MVG, where they have a discussion around this delay announcement. And one of the things that did come up during this podcast is, of course, both Nate and MVG have some connections at Ubisoft, which you may remember is working on a major Mario title known as Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. And of course, we have expected that to be a 2022 game up till this point in time. However, there's been a lot of talk that that may be a likely game to get pushed to 2023 due to needing longer development time. And it is now sounding like, with the new open window of the back half of 2022 being really blown wide open now for big AAA games to be released in the absence of Breath of the Wild 2, that would quite honestly overshadow a lot of these games if it was launched right alongside of it. Like, everybody's going to be talking about Breath of the Wild 2 when it drops, and without them confirming something specifically around a date, it is by all accounts sounding like it is more likely to hit now in 2022 as probably a holiday window title. And you have to keep in mind that we have a major Mario movie around the corner to look forward to this year in the end of the year time slot as well, and it would make a lot of sense to cross promote those two, as I would be very surprised for Nintendo to just drop a Mario Odyssey and then we also have a Mario Rabbids plus Sparks of Hope game around the corner. Like, that's a lot of Mario in my opinion, and I do think that the Sparks of Hope title looks far more ambitious than the original Mario plus Rabbids. So I think they're taking the franchise seriously. It looks like they're pouring a ton of dollars into the cinematics, and the cutscenes we've seen so far just look absolutely beautiful. And I do think that with all things considered and the new 2022 window that we have opened up towards the back half of the year, that Sparks of Hope makes a lot of sense to launch very near to the Mario movie. So maybe that's the cross promotional title, no telling for sure, but the Ubisoft contacts that they have, it does sound like the development is going very smooth with the game, meaning that it may still be on track for that 2022 release. And while I did not really play through too much of the original Mario plus Rabbids game, it is something that looks interesting to me on the surface, and I do think that with the bigger budget and development that's going into Sparks of Hope, that I will definitely check out this title, and it'll be a day one pickup for me, and I will continue to watch for new trailers. I do think that this is another game that would get likely some kind of update or just new gameplay trailer at something like a E3, or not E3 since that's canceled, but summertime direct rather from Nintendo. Maybe it's as late as the September direct, but I do think we get more footage of this game this year, and hopefully an exact release date penciled in. And I'm still hopeful that maybe as soon as next year in 2023 we finally get the long awaited either Mario Odyssey 2 or just an entirely new mainline 3D Mario. Now, one other thing to quickly reference from the podcast besides the Mario news is they do briefly talk about other games that are possible for this 2022 lineup. It does sound like more like speculation on some of the fronts, like whenever they talk about Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, it's definitely in the realm of possibility that we get those games this year, and I'm very hopeful that that is a big surprise blowaway announcement at the Summertime Direct, that after they give us that sorry for waiting longer for Breath of the Wild 2 while we are developing the game, here is Wind Waker HD to launch in the fall of 2022, something like that. Maybe it's Twilight Princess HD, maybe it's both in a combo pack. I think that's less likely now that the 35th anniversary marketing window has come and gone, but those games are very likely to be done and in completion and just sitting there for this exact scenario if Nintendo did need more development time with Breath of the Wild 2, and they do, so of course it makes sense to maybe give us that in the interim time while we are waiting. The one other game that was mentioned is a big one for me, and it was a quick discussion around Metroid Prime 1 Remake. MVG mentioned Metroid Prime Trilogy. Nate said we're at least most likely getting Metroid Prime 1 Remake, as he and Emily Rogers have been the two big names out there saying that this project is indeed done, or at least getting close to done at Retro, and it's just been one of those projects that has been essentially a placeholder title while we are waiting on Metroid Prime 4 to eventually hit, because we know that that project has taken way longer than a lot of fans were anticipating, as it does sound like 2023 is best case scenario for the soonest that we could see that game. And of course, Metroid fans, and specifically Metroid Prime fans, if you know, you know, like that series is incredible. Well, we want to play some Metroid games in the meantime, and Metroid Prime 1 Remake definitely makes sense, especially with it being the 20th year anniversary of that game. And Nate does tend to think that we would see that announced at a Summertime Direct. So I'm certainly hopeful that that is the lineup we are looking at least so far. If we get something like Metroid Prime 1 Remake, and we also get a Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess HD announcement, and then we have a brand new Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hopes game to look forward to, in addition to all of the other major 2022 titles, like Nintendo is going to have no problem selling systems this holiday season, and I definitely think it is going to be a great year once again to be a Nintendo Switch gamer. So I want to hear from you guys at this point in the comments down below on your personal thoughts and feelings around the Mario title being planned for 2022. Do you think it's going to hit this holiday season and maybe even cross promote the movie like I tend to believe, or do you think it is something that may ultimately still get pushed to 2023? And bonus questions, what games do you hope we see announced at that Summertime Nintendo Direct that they are most likely planning? And do you think Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess HD or even Metroid Prime 1 Remake is in the conversation of games that could be featured at this event? So please share all your thoughts and feelings on this in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today is a brand new Nintendo Switch system firmware upgrade that did go live late last night, and I want to cover some of the details of this, as it is not a major update to be clear, but I saw a lot of discussion and talk online questioning what was actually changed, if anything, because it's not immediately noticeable unless you kind of dig in through the settings. So I do want to quickly hop over to VGC, where they have the detailed breakdown of the patch notes and what has been changed here, and then also have a broader discussion around what changes we need to see Nintendo add to the system going forward, as we are now clearly 5 years into the Nintendo Switch and there is still a lot to be desired when it comes to basic functionality on the system. Let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through the article and break down the details together. Switch's latest system update introduces Animal Crossing icons and Platinum Point alerts. Update version 14.1.0 adds minor quality of life changes. Nintendo Switch System Update version 14.1.0 is now live and brings with it updates to the My Nintendo Platinum Point system. The minor update will now notify players when they have unclaimed My Nintendo points. This can be turned off in the system menu. Players will now be able to use their My Nintendo Platinum points in order to redeem custom Nintendo Switch icons based on Animal Crossing and Splatoon, which will be available until May 1st, 2021. Last month, Nintendo added folders to Nintendo Switch 5 years after the console's launch. The much requested feature, which Nintendo is calling Groups, allows users to more conveniently manage their software libraries from the Switch home menu. Up to 100 groups can be created with a max of 200 titles per group. The same software title can be added to multiple groups. Nintendo's description reads, "You can sort all your favorite software titles however you want. Using themed groups can help make titles easier to find too." So while this is definitely a more minor upgrade than the last system firmware update we saw hit, which of course did add in those long-awaited folders that I know some people still wish were directly on the home menu instead of having to go to the all software section and then pull up your groups, I'm still grateful that we have them, period. And I do like that you can add the same titles into those multiple times over and really create the collection of games that you want in each individual group. So I'm a fan of that. It's something that we've been asking for years and years. In terms of this new update, obviously is just a notification setting for the platinum points that ties into the whole missions and rewards things, which Nintendo has recently launched on the service. And you know, I'm kind of conflicted on that. It's like, cool, we can earn platinum points in new ways and actually keep up with it easier on the system, and you just have to do specific tasks to earn those platinum points. That said, I would much prefer a system of traditional trophies or achievements like we see happen on the competition, where we have extra things to do in games. And if you really want to be a completionist, you can show off your trophy collection, or you can 100% a game fully and get all of the extra stuff that's included in there. Imagine having extra missions and side things to do in a game like Breath of the Wild 2 when it launches. I'm still hopeful that one day Nintendo will implement some kind of system like that, and maybe they actually tie it into platinum points for unlocking the major achievements or the major trophies. Like, I would be all here for that. And I think missions and rewards is kind of a step towards a system like that, and they are now obviously just enabling a feature that you can be notified when you do unlock those platinum points, which I will leave turned on personally. But I do think that this is maybe a small step in the direction of them eventually enabling achievements or trophies, and it might take till something like the Switch 2 or whatever the true successor to the Nintendo Switch is. But I'm hopeful that because Nintendo keeps saying that the Switch is in the halfway point of its life cycle, the family of systems, I think if it really is in the halfway point, we definitely get a more powerful revision. Maybe it's just PR talk and they really are planning the true next gen console around the corner. But just like we've seen Nintendo do historically so far with the Switch's firmware, it's not out of the realm of possibility to expect more major updates to hit it, as we've seen them enable Bluetooth support almost 5 years into the Switch's life cycle since the original launch of the system. And now all of a sudden in 2022, we can actually pair up wireless headsets, which is definitely a feature you would expect to be supported on something that is a hybrid console. And most recently with the addition of folders. And I gotta say, outside of what we've seen so far, the big ones on my list, besides some kind of hopefully in the future achievement and trophy system, would be things like the theme section. We only have white and black themes. Why we don't have custom themes for games is beyond me, as I know people would have so much fun having a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild theme in the background, especially if they do something like dynamic themes where we see wind blowing, or we see kind of those effects like you see on the PS4, PS5, and the Series X. I mean, really, the dynamic themes have been around since the PS3 era of things, and Nintendo's just never really dove into that themselves for their home consoles. And all they really need to do is look at the 3DS and how they treated that over the years and do something similar with the Switch. And the Switch is clearly a hybrid console where it's portable and docked, so it's like, give us the best of both worlds, Nintendo. So hopefully that's around the corner. The next one up on the wish list would really tie more into the Nintendo Switch Online portion of the functionality, but we need to have chat systems, whether that be voice chat. I do hope we get that natively on the console one day. That's fine. At least give us text chat in the meantime. Like, you should be able to send a message to your friend online to talk to them about which game they want to play. And even if that's only tied to text right now, it's pretty ridiculous that we can't do that in the year of 2022. And regardless of Nintendo's stance on not wanting to get involved on sending messages back and forth on their platform, I think you can do it correctly with parental controls, and I don't think there's too much to worry about if they just enabled that feature. But of course, that is my outside looking in perspective. I don't know why they are not enabling any kind of ability to send things to each other through the system directly. Let me share my screenshots to my friends on the Switch firmware itself. Like, there's really no reason you should have to go to outside apps and other ways of connecting online to get that done in the year of 2022. So that's kind of my quick wish list off the top of my head. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video on what you hope we see next when it comes to Nintendo Switch system firmware upgrades. Are you like me and you really want to see some themes, hopefully dynamic themes around games, and maybe even like a different icon layout than what we have with just the traditional squares right now? And let me know if you are a fan of the trophies and achievement systems on the other consoles and you would like to see something like that really implemented on the Nintendo Switch, or if you're not a fan of that system and you'd rather have it left out altogether. So please share all your thoughts and feelings before you leave the video on both the stories we talked about today in the comments down below, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Make sure you check out yesterday's video if you haven't already, where we discussed Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, specifically the roadmap of N64 games going forward, and how we only know to expect 3 more so far, and when we may see the future announcements and which games that may include. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.